Hi, David. My name is Taylor. It's nice to meet you today. How are you doing?
I'm okay, I guess.
Okay, well, before we begin, I just wanted to let you know that anything that you say to me today will remain confidential unless you or someone else is at risk of harm. Anything else will remain between you and I, and it's important that you know this. I want you to know this because my only motive here today is to help you in the best way that I can. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what brought you here today.
Well, I've really been struggling. I don't really feel like myself anymore. My mind is constantly racing. I'm getting in fights with my parents often. I don't know. I feel really out of it. And I get so mad so quickly. And I just don't feel happy anymore.
Okay, I see. Well, this must be really hard on you. Can you tell me how you don't feel like yourself anymore? Can you kind of expand on that?
I don't know. I guess I do things now that I didn't used to do. I get mad all of a sudden for no reason. I say super mean things that I don't mean and that I would have never said before. I feel super down all the time, but at the same time, I have like a ton of energy.
Have there ever been times lasting at least a few days where you felt extra irritable or had a lot more energy than usual?
Yes, it's so weird. It's like I don't even need to sleep anymore. I can sleep for 2 hours and be completely rested. And then I get so mad so quickly. And I think that's probably why I've been fighting with my parents so much.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. It definitely helps give me more insight to how you're feeling. When did all of this start? When did you start feeling this way?
Well, I've really been feeling this way since I was 16. So I guess a year. It's really an all day, every day kind of thing, especially when I'm in an irritable mood. I can be perfectly fine. And then all of a sudden, something sets me off and I turn into a completely different person. And I feel so bad because I don't want to be mean to my parents. It's like I'm looking at myself from the outside and have like no control.
I see. And when you have these feelings, do you feel like it causes you to do things that might not be the safest choice or things that you feel like you normally wouldn't do in other circumstances?
Well, yeah. I've been skipping school and sneaking out at night, but my parents haven't figured that out yet. I've smoked weed a couple of times. I didn't used to do these things. I just never felt happy anymore. And it makes me feel just a little happier when I'm hanging out with my friends and having fun or trying to have fun, I guess.
Okay, well, I really appreciate your honesty. Um, I hear you say that you never feel happy anymore. Has there ever been a time that you have felt so unhappy that you didn't want to live anymore, or do you currently feel this way?
No, no, I have never felt that down. Just kind of like meh, blah, all the time.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. Have you ever had thoughts of wanting to hurt other people or animals?
Oh, definitely not. I've never had any kind of thoughts like that.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that you've never felt this way before. Is this the first time that you've seen a therapist or that you've sought out additional help?
Yeah, this is the first time that it's gotten bad enough that my parents felt like I needed to talk to someone. It kind of feels weird to need to see a therapist, though, to be honest.
I understand that. It can be super uncomfortable to talk to someone about such personal things, especially when you're just now meeting them. But I do want to thank you for being so open and honest with me because I really am here to support you and help you in any way that I can. But with that being said, I do want to ask you a few more questions about things that you may or may not have experienced, if that's okay. Have you ever seen or heard things that other people didn't, or feel like someone was following you or trying to hurt you in some way?
No, I don't think anything like that has happened.
Okay. What about feelings like you might have special powers, such as being able to read people's minds?
No, none of that either. I wish, though.
Okay, great. Um, I know you said that over the past year you've struggled with racing thoughts. Do you frequently worry about things or have frequent anxious thoughts that are hard to get rid of?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel like anxious and just on edge, like a lot.
Okay. Um, During the past several months, have you frequently been worried about a number of things in your life? Is it hard to control or stop your worrying, or is that something that you can kind of get under control when it starts happening?
Well, I feel like I've always been like an anxious person. I can't always pinpoint exactly why I'm feeling anxious, but lately a lot of my anxious thoughts have been about wondering if I'm going to feel like my old self again, because some days I feel like I never will get back to that.
Yeah, I can understand that worry. Um, a panic attack is like the sudden urge of really intense fear that comes on for like no apparent reason or um, a time where you necessarily wouldn't expect it. Do you feel like you have experienced any panic attacks?
No, I don't think I've ever really had a panic attack. Mostly just anxious thoughts and feelings.
Okay, good. Do you feel like you've ever had any intrusive thoughts or unwanted images or urges or like any physical acts that you try to avoid doing, like having to count to a certain number or the need for something to be perfect or clean or trying to avoid anything?
Mm, No, not really. I mean, I really like things being cleaned and I clean a lot. I like to have a tidy room and I make my bed and but I'm not obsessed with it. I just like to live in a clean space.
Okay. Um, so now I'm going to ask you a couple of personal questions. And if you don't feel comfortable answering them, that's okay. Just let me know. I completely understand. Um, I want to start out with, what do you feel like the worst thing that has ever happened to you would be?
Honestly, I feel like I've been pretty lucky, which is the worst part of all of this. I feel like I don't have the right to be struggling the way I am. A lot of people have it so much worse than me. But here I am throwing a pity party, feeling down and feeling angry all the time, not having any control over myself.
Well, I'm glad that you consider yourself lucky. But please know that even though you feel like you haven't experienced trauma, that doesn't make your feelings any less valid. The way that you feel will always be valid and important, whether you feel like you deserve to be able to feel that way or not. So I really appreciate you being so open with me. And I really do feel like we're going to be able to work really well together because you are able to be so open with me. Um, I'm going to ask you a couple more personal questions that may be uncomfortable for you. So once again, if you do feel uncomfortable answering them, that's okay. Just let me know. Have you ever been abused or witnessed an event where someone else was being abused or thought you or someone else's life was in danger?
No, like I said, I really consider myself pretty lucky. Nothing super horrible or out of the ordinary has ever really happened to me.
Okay, well, I'm really glad to hear that. Um, I have another question. So everyone has trouble remembering things from time to time. But do you ever feel like there's situations where you lose time or forget important details about yourself, um, or find evidence that you took part in something like an event, but you can't remember it?
I don't think so.
Okay. And do you ever feel like people or places that are familiar to you feel unreal or feel like you're kind of standing outside of your own body or watching yourself from the outside?
No, I've never really experienced anything like that.
Okay, good. Let's talk about your physical health. Do you get sick or worry about your physical health more than most people, do you feel like?
No, I feel like I don't really get sick all that often.
Well, good. I'm really glad to hear that. How do you feel about your appearance? Do you ever restrict food or avoid food that may affect you negatively?
No, I've never had any kind of eating issues. I really enjoy food.
Me too. Um, what about sleep? Do you feel like you get enough sleep, or do you feel like you maybe get too much or too little?
It's kind of hard to sleep sometimes. I just feel like I have so much energy like all the time, and it hits me like at night when everyone else is winding down. I'm just a night owl or whatever they call it.
Okay, I see. Um, Do you happen to know if anyone else in your family struggles with feelings that are similar to yours, or anyone who has experienced substance abuse issues or trauma, um, or anything like that?
I know my mom has some type of anxiety and she takes medicine for it, but I'm not sure what kind. She didn't have the best childhood growing up. My grandpa was an alcoholic, so that might have had something to do with it. I'm not really sure.
Okay. Well, thank you for all of this information. I know that it can seem like a lot, and some of it might not feel like it's relevant at all. But the more that you can tell me about yourself, the more that I'm able to help you and kind of get the bigger picture. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your family and how you've grown up?
Well, I live with my mom and my dad, and my little sister, she's 14. Honestly, it's just kind of a normal life, normal, boring family, which is a good thing, I guess. I've lived here all my life. My dad has too. Actually, my dad's whole family still lives here, and my mom's family lives in Florida. We don't really see them a lot. Like I said, she didn't have the best childhood growing up, so she doesn't really talk to them much.
Okay. Um, well, I see it seems like you really care about your parents, and it's great that you seem to have a strong relationship with them. Um, how would you describe your relationship with your parents and with your sister?
Uh, Pretty good, I guess, at least up until now. My sister is actually pretty cool. She's a freshman this year. My parents and I are pretty close and still are, I guess. I'm giving them a hard time right now. Even though I know I am, it's so hard to control it and it's so frustrating. They're really supportive though, and which I really appreciate. It would be really easy for them to be mad at me all the time, but they've actually been pretty patient and understanding with me.
Well, that's really great. It's very clear that you do really care about your parents, and it seems like you really do have a very supportive relationship with them, which is really helpful. Um, do you play any sports? Or are there any activities that you are involved in outside of school?
No, sports really aren't my thing. I have asthma, so I've never really been a guy to play sports. My friends and I do like to play video games, though, so sometimes we do that after school.
Okay, well, that's great to have something that you enjoy doing with friends. Um, how do you feel like asthma has affected you? Do you feel like not being able to play sports because of your asthma, do you feel like you've missed out? Or has that really, do you feel like it's affected you at all?
I feel like it really hasn't affected me. Sports just aren't really my thing. So even if I didn't have it, I don't know if I would do sports anyways. I don't like getting hurt. So I probably wouldn't.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you take any medications for your asthma or any other prescription or over-the-counter medications?
Well, I have an inhaler if I need one, but that's all I take. And no other medications. I mean, maybe some, not even any ibuprofen or anything. Honestly, I don't like taking that.
Okay. Well, now I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your family history. And if you don't know the answers, that's perfectly okay. Just try to answer to the best of your ability. Do you know if any of your relatives have had any kind of nervous breakdowns or depression, or substance abuse issues, or suicidal tendencies?
No, not that I know of. Well, except my grandpa, who was an alcoholic, but that's the only thing I know of.
Okay. How were you as a child? Did you have any kind of childhood issues or anything like that?
Think so. I think I had to take speech fit therapy or something like that for a year. But that's all I can remember.
Okay. Well, how do you like school? Are you enjoying school right now?
I actually don't mind school too much, honestly. It keeps me distracted from my thoughts for most of the day, and I actually enjoy learning. So it kind of is a place to get out of my own head sometimes. But when I get home, that's when I start to get irritable again and feel like super down.
Okay, well, that's great that you seem to enjoy school and that it kind of provides an outlet for you. Sometimes it's nice to have a distraction during the day. Um, Besides school, is there anything else that you use to kind of de-stress, or any kind of coping mechanisms when you start to feel down or feel irritable?
Well, yeah, video games
Okay.
sometimes. Um, just to zone out and just get away for a little bit. But sometimes that's why I like sneak out too. I just have something to do to get my mind distracted from everything else.
Okay, well, I see. Well, I want to thank you again for being so open and honest with me today. I know that is not an easy thing to do, especially with just meeting someone for the first time. Um, I hear that you're really struggling with irritability, having a decreased need for sleep, and all of those things you feel like are causing you to engage in activities that you normally wouldn't do. I also hear that you have a lot of guilt for how you feel like you are treating your parents. Um, but I also want to remind you that, again, it is not your fault. You are here seeking out help to get you in a more stable position. It's really great that your parents are still so supportive. And I want you to know and to remember that even though you don't feel like you have the right to feel the way that your feelings are always valid, um, and that they're always important. Um, I know that you are eager to feel like your old self again, and I feel like we're really going to be able to get you to that place. Um, I would like to see you again next week, if that's okay, and we can begin working on a treatment plan to kind of get you back to where you want to be. How does that sound?
I think that sounds really good. I'm excited to maybe just get some type of plan going so where I can feel stable again and maybe start enjoying things and not have my mind all over the place all the time. So
Yeah,
I appreciate that a lot.
absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to get to work with you. I think that we are really going to make some progress and we're really going to get you feeling better. It was so nice to meet you. I'll see you next week.